here I'm going through more of a teaching moment, finishing up talking about the share count and share dilution that this company has done that I talked about in the last video and their acquisitions in the weed and marijuana market, if you're following along. Here I'm just further explaining to him why why there has been so much share dilution, which we went over in the last video, because they've been acquiring companies. B, I'm going over why this is horrible in this case, because not only are they massively overpaying for these assets that they're acquiring, but they will also likely have to, at some point, impair either in part or in full goodwill, which will decrease the book value of the company and decrease the balance sheet strength of the company.
Which will lower the book value of the company. Also, it at least initially points us to the direction that these guys are in heavy growth mode, and they're gonna make this buying decisions not necessarily based on good capital allocation decisions, but growth. Just get a company to a certain size. Hey, Constellation bought 10% of us. We got to show we're growing every year. So let's just throw a ton more shares out. Well,
and he's perfectly right in this case. They are acquiring these assets, again, like I talked about in the last video, just because they are getting attention for bigger companies, and also because other people in the industry are acquiring companies. They don't care about price.
Yeah, now let me ask you this question. So if you had a choice to issue shares or go into debt, I guess they're both bad, right? You really don't want the company with either.
Great question by him, and there's a lot of nuance when it comes to this kind of answer. If all else being equal, I'd rather have the company issue debt if they can issue debt at a low interest rate and they have the cash flow to sustain that debt and pay off that debt. I do not like when companies issue equity, especially in my arena where I focus on small and nano caps, because that can destroy small and nano cap investors. So I'm biased against share equity. The only time share equity makes sense is somewhere like a Berkshire Hathaway is a perfect example, is if you know you're getting more in value than what you're giving up. In other words, Buffett, the only time he will give up shares in Buffett or in Berkshire Hathaway to acquire a company is if he knows he's getting more in value than he's giving up in Berkshire Hathaway shares.
You look at the value of buyback shares versus the value of the interest, and if it's so low, it's almost like free money.
And the example I was going over with him here was Apple. They a couple of years ago were issuing debt at extremely low rates, buying back shares, increasing dividends, stuff like that. That is a healthy use of debt, in my opinion.
Well, the book value per share increased, but since goodwill exploded, it's a lot of goodwill. It's a lot of goodwill. So it means you really can't rely on the book value.
And he is correct here again. In this case, almost in 100% of cases, I do not count goodwill in any of my calculations, because most of the time it's just an accounting number. It has to be in there due to accounting law and regulations. It doesn't really have any economic value or real value when it comes to the company. The only exception is on companies with long-term sustained competitive advantages. They have moats. Then you can get into the case of economic goodwill, which Buffett talks about in his Berkshire Hathaway shareholders letters quite a bit. That is rare. Even I think there's only a handful of times he mentions it in all of his 40 or 50 years of Berkshire Hathaway letters now. He talks about economic goodwill quite a bit in a couple letters, but even then, that's in 99% of the cases, economic goodwill does not have any factor. But in this case, especially because they are massively overpaying for these acquisitions, meaning they'll likely have to impair the either full or part value of the goodwill at some point, I would discount this goodwill 100% off the balance sheet, and I would not count any of their intangible assets either, because in the weed and marijuana market, there are no sustained competitive advantages yet. There is no huge trademarks. There is no huge distribution channels, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, but if you look at the balance sheet too, the total cash has been increasing. And I'm like, how the hell can cash increase when the free cash flow has been negative? And that's what led me to the equity finance, and that's where they're getting the money, is selling shares.
And he's right. The analogy I used here is they're taking money from one pocket and putting it into the other pocket and making it seem like it's brand new money.
They are, compare that to the size. Oh yeah, 3.4. Sorry, 3.4. Yeah.
Okay, so what I was doing here is the 3.4 represents the market cap at this time, 3.4 billion. When he first started analyzing this company by himself, he said that when he saw cash increasing and $120 million on the balance sheet, he thought that was a great thing, and normally it is, but you also have to compare the amount of cash to the market cap of the company, and the amount of cash this company has isn't even it's barely a fraction of its market cap.
Yeah, I haven't done the NCAV. I haven't looked at that number, the NCAV. Maybe I'll put that down as homework too.
NCAV is NCAV, net current asset valuations. It's current assets minus total liabilities to find an estimated value of the company.
That's what I did. I said, well, and then I'm like, how the hell is cash going up, but they're not making any money? Their operating income and their free cash flow are negative. And I'm like, they do. That was another con that I put.
Here we're just talking about and illustrating their massive negative free
And
cash
then
flow.
their other go to the efficiency ratios. Look at the cash conversion cycle; it's ridiculous.
Here we begin to get into the cash conversion cycle, which is an ultra important metric that we'll continue to go over in
5,000 days.
videos. And this of note is the days of inventory has almost tripled from an insanely high 554 to a ridiculously high almost 1,400 days.
That's 369. It's over 40 years. 40 years of inventory. And then what's interesting is they don't really have payables, which makes sense. Is not, you buy seeds, you grow wheat, right? You probably don't have a lot of suppliers in that aspect. Compare. What does the cash conversion cycle mean to me? They can't get rid of their inventory.
Here again is another teaching moment for him. We've gone over the cash conversion cycle a little bit at this point, but I was seeing if he understood it on a deep and in-depth level. What essentially I'm going over here is the days of inventory.
Okay,
that could mean for the balance sheet and the company and their operations. If you see almost 4 years of inventory on the company's books, 4 years worth of marijuana inventory is ridiculous. So what's that? What does that mean? What does that truly mean from an economic perspective? A, that's going to drive prices down, not only because there's such a huge amount of inventory, but because you likely have to discount it to get rid of it before it goes bad. B, that means they're having trouble selling their product if they have almost 4 years worth of inventory.
Yeah, and there's not really a huge moat, I'm assuming, for the weed industry. I'm assuming you get certain types and people like certain types, but do they like that type enough where they're going to pay double over another brand? I wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't think so either, especially with the glut of marijuana coming online with the either legalization or decriminalization of medical marijuana in many states in the United States. Again, this is just going to drive prices down, lead to discounting prices, lead to lower book value, lead to having to write off some of their
That's a good point.
This one number, this cash conversion cycle, is ultra important, and we'll continue to go over that in future videos of why.
Yeah, that's a great point. They also have the coziness with the local and probably federal government too. The experience.